Hello, hello, everyone. I have a question for you. What makes you nervous about going on camera? Is it one thing, two things, three things? For me, it's so many things. And so I'm super excited today as your intuitive communication coach on the channel, Fully Expressed with Tina B, to really highlight this idea of what it means to get on camera and how that feels. But really, I'm talking about the fear and how the fear lands because what your relationship is with a camera is how related your nervous system and how dysregulated it is. So, we're going to highlight three things today. The first is the difference between video communication and in person communication. Then, I'm going to share with you an epic Zoom fail. And then finally, provide three tips that you can take with you to help you with your experience on the camera. And if people show up today, we'll do some Q&A as well. So let's dive right in. First of all, from an energetic standpoint, exactly what is the difference when you're on camera versus in person? And for me, I have found that when I walk into a networking space or on stage for a keynote or a workshop, whatever the case may be, I love sharing oxygen with other humans, and it can ground me. Now, sure, I have the butterflies before about every speaking engagement, but it's not to the amplified level of when I go on camera. So what I like is it feels so real to be able to see if my communication is connecting with the other person. I get to witness their facial expressions, their posture, their body, their tone of voice, how they be in that moment, and is it landing the words, and am I making that impact? Now contrast that with getting on video. Like, for example, I even found myself starting a little flustered just moments ago because I was like, oh, and we're live, because it's spinning. And I'm like, I had this moment of, is the technology going to work? And I find with camera work and video, it really is self-generated frequency, and it's in a self-generated field. So it feels like there's this fifth wall right here, and I'm seeing myself, which feels really weird. I haven't even watched my two TEDx talks because there's something about watching myself that is really hard. And I know a lot of people can empathize with that as well. And it just feels fake, right? Right now as alive, I can't see people. I feel as though I'm just talking to myself. And so it's a lot more efforting. It's putting in a lot more energy than what I prefer as opposed to when I'm in person. So note that when it comes to energy, and the difference between video and being in person is that being in person, you get to feel the presence of people. You get to share that oxygen with them. You get to know if it's working or not, and you can adjust. Whereas on camera, you don't have that wonderful opportunity. So let me tell you, when we think about this, the camera exaggerates our dysregulation. So I can tell that I get a little bit more inside of my body. I don't know if any of you experience that as well, because it just feels more formal. And it almost tells me in some ways where I feel like I have to overperform to compensate. And the silence becomes a lot louder when you are on camera. And so let's just have a meta moment here. I'm curious what's going on in your head when you get on camera. For me, when I clicked that live, it was like, I'm on camera. I'm on camera. Nobody's here. Hello? Does my hair look fried and weird? Do I have the right makeup on? Oh, good. I've got a solid shirt on. I don't have a pattern of stripes. That could be distracting. Okay. Am I saying the right thing? Am I boring? Oh, someone just left. Is this landing? Those are the things that are spinning in my head, from how I look to how I sound, to if I'm connecting, am I liked? And my brain immediately goes from, okay, I bet thousands of people are evaluating everything about this moment. when really it might be just 5. We tend to create exaggerated stories in our minds. And so, really, it sets my nervous system on fire. So, at the core, it's asking yourself, what and how can you regulate yourself so that when things start to go sideways, whether it's with technology or whatever, how can you ground yourself? Let me tell you a story that happened about 5 years ago. It was early on in the pandemic. And a friend agreed early on, as I was really becoming much more national with my business, I had to get on camera. She's like, you got to do this. And so we collaborated to do a workshop about how to boost your business in story. And so it was a storytelling workshop. And I was excited that 30 plus people had registered. Hooray. We practiced. I felt good about the content, but what we didn't practice enough in hindsight was the technology. So we show up on camera, and I made a big error. I did not make her a co-host on Zoom. And again, I was green. I had not done Zoom a lot. This was my first time actually facilitating a workshop without the assistance of someone who was, taking care of the registrants. So all of a sudden I'm talking, and guess what? Ping, ping, ping. All these little admit this person, admit this. So I'm trying to click that talk. I don't know what I'm saying. And then at the same time, so my friend's not the co-host, it's just me. I'm trying to hook people into this. I'm getting comments in the chat that say, your sound is really hard to hear. It's like staticky. And I thought, oh no, my friend had said, oh, you sound fine. Well, what had happened is Zoom had gone automatically to my Mac instead of my external microphone. So people couldn't hear me very well. And then the third thing that went wild is I have 2 screens. So guess what? It became very difficult to facilitate seeing the people. My slides were going all over the place. And just my inner monologue just went in complete toddler-like meltdown. I was like, oh my gosh. And what hit me is at the moment I thought I was mad at the technology because it's like, it's not working. But really what it was is I was mad at myself that I couldn't control this experience. I don't know if you've ever felt that way, right? You want that certainty that things are going to go well, people are going to receive your information, and that you're going to land in the hearts, and then potentially, if you run a business, gain a client. So it became a powerful pivot. I realized in that experience that I shifted from teaching and guiding people with ideas to becoming a performer, like performative. And the panic was driving the bus, the fear of, I got to have this right. I got to get this going. I just want to get this done. And that urgency, that push became very prevalent in how I was thinking and how I was speaking, and the pace and everything just was like, and the tech really stressed that it's this experience of your relationship and exposure of how control issues I had. I have control issues. I had control issues in that moment. So if your nervous system, your body is not regulated, guess what happens? You're going to have much more catastrophic moments where you can't deal when technology is going awry. So my encouragement is to really be a calmer creator. And this is something I'm still working on, because I find for me, I have way more 30 plus years of experience of getting on stages and in spaces in person. And so the learning curve has been huge. In the last 5 years, I've evolved into doing a little bit more online, sometimes resisting it because I don't love it. And I'm getting there, and I'm getting there. So I don't know if any of you can feel that way. And I love Rennick. Thank you so much. when you commented here, Tina B, you're so right about the greater energy used when people are not in the audience, not responding or not actively participating. Oh, you can feel that. Then you can pivot and know what you can do, because right now it's like, are people, I got this one engaged comment. Fantastic. So let me give you 3 wonderful tips that have helped me that might help you when you get on camera. And then I would love your questions. So be thinking about what are some questions that you have that would help ground you when it comes to virtual spaces and places that you facilitate communication, or getting on camera on social media, etc. So the first is test your sound. Don't just go through the motions, say, I trust it, it's fine. Because I've talked to my clients, when you have your notes in front of you for your presentation, you just look at them. That's not the same as embodying it and trying it out and seeing what's fluid and flows. So test it, because if people can't hear you, you lose your credibility. Your sound, your voice is your power. It's your credibility. And I highly recommend having an external microphone, because that amplifies and makes it a lot more crisp and professional. And if you're doing a podcast, if you will, like, even headphones are really great to eliminate that external noise and echoey aspect. So test the sound. And I'd also go so far as the visual is important too, testing the lighting. So that's that tech piece. The second is simplify your visuals. Think of it this way. Here I am on a YouTube live. This is my 3rd one. Each time I'm doing it, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm stretching, and working on getting better moment by moment. And so I'm keeping a blank background, because I'm like, I'm teaching, I'm going to focus on my teaching. And as I get the comfort level, I will maybe add some visuals, props, maybe a little, flyer poster type deal. And so something to think about is, if you are having slide deck, less is more. Not a ton of slides, go less. Visuals are more powerful, and big enough font that people can read. And don't make it a big bloody grocery list, because it'll be death by PowerPoint, right? Then it's looking at, if you are co-facilitating or facilitating by yourself a beautiful webinar or workshop, and it's on your own, ask either a friend or someone you work with to have someone assign a role to let people in, so you don't have to worry about that. You can with ease communicate, as well as manage the chat. Then you have to also think, what kinds of simplicity can you do overall if you can reduce complexity with how it is to be? So that comes with how you communicate the content. Less is more. No more than 3 points, ideally, even if it's an hour-long workshop, because then the information can land on the ears and in the hearts of your audience members. So we test the sound, we simplify our visuals, and we assign roles. This is really important, where you look at the inner game of finding where you be, how you feel. Like right before this live, I really asked myself, where am I? What is my body feeling? And what am I thinking in this moment? And what really grounded me was, at the core, asking this question: am I here to connect or control? And that took me back, because if you're in a controlling type of energy, it's a grippiness, and people can feel that. And you're like, I want them to do this, and I'm expecting this. It's letting go of the attachment of A, how many people show up to your live or workshop. B, letting go of that attachment of if they participate or not. C, look at it all as feedback. It's an experience. It's not a failure. It is an experience. And it's like, okay, what landed, what worked, what could I do differently for next time? So be in a controlled space within your body, like really take in the awareness of, and give your space of asking how you feel, and align the body and the breath with your mind, and set that intention to be in a connection focus. So once you answer, okay, I want to connect, then it's really taking those 3 breaths, being aware of how you pace your communication. You might slow down about 15% more, because sometimes when we get nervous, we tend to speed up and we talk really, really fast and blah, 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 because we're like, I just want to race through. I just want to get this over with. And then also, after the breath, after you consider the vocal pacing, soften your shoulders and your overall posture. Like, notice where your tension is in your body, because that can make all the difference in the world. So it's awareness, awareness, awareness of where you be and how you be, because you get to decide. If it's sort of like my son, when he shows up to his golf tournaments, he gets to decide, I'm showing up as a golf athlete, and I'm going to own that beingness, and I'm going to show up. I'm going to do the warm-ups. I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to trust myself, trust my intuition. And that is at the core. When you're on video, if you can trust your intuition, give yourself the spaciousness and the grace to then breathe, slow down, because here's the deal. People tend to rush, stop breathing, and then they want to prove something. And if you can tune into, okay, what is that element? Am I feeling this edgy frustration? Okay, I'm aware. I'm not going to judge it. With loving compassion, I'm going to get back to my body. Maybe it's shake it out. Maybe it's just breathe, move a little bit, and then move forth and to take on that posture. So I would love, love, love to get any questions at this time, that those of you that have participated. I see Rennick is here. I know there's one other person here today. I'm grateful that you're here. What questions do you have for me? And I love, Rennick, you said, I like the idea of connect versus control. Yes, because I think what do we want more than anything is this idea of certainty. And Vicky, yes, your emphasis on connection versus control is extremely well taken. I love that you love this, because I've found, for me, I am a creative, but when I get into video, there becomes this performative logic brain kind of takes over. And it's like, well, what's the script? How do I do this? I got to get this right. And I had a client that actually I worked with, basically wanted me to compose the entire presentation word for word, and wanted it ready to be ready and memorize it. And I think about that in video, right? I think what my brain goes to is, well, as a kid, I grew up watching Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, all these TV shows, and they had a script, and they were doing a performance, and it was powerful, and it was entertaining, and it was informative, or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I got to create a movie. I am the actor of the movie. I got to look a certain way, be a certain way. And then guess what? That energy starts to, it's like a pot that's been boiling of water, and it just can spiral. And if you've seen Inside Out, especially the second one where anxiety shows up, that's when you want to be in a grounded space and place when you are conveying information. And it can be, especially, that's the difference between doing in live versus when you have the opportunity to edit. Video and editing gives you a little bit more control and certainty, whereas when you're live on a Zoom facilitating some form of a workshop with the people there, or a webinar, or you're going live in real time on a social platform, all of a sudden you're like, it can be very daunting. And so the biggest thing is, if you can do a balance, which I'm going to be talking about this as we go forth with future YouTube lives here at the same time, 11 o'clock Central, is how to balance that preparation with presence. So Rennick is asking, how do you feel about using humor early in the talk to connect? Oh, I like this. It's really, I always tell my clients, be grounded and in alignment with who you are and what is natural and true, first of all, to you. Some people really have a subconsciousness that says, I'm just not funny. I don't tell jokes well. If that's a tape that's playing in your mind, then it's going to come off weird. And you want to start the thing in a way that feels right and true for you, that grounds you. I love to start with stories. In this case, because it was a live, I kicked off with a core question to sort of ground us in and make the audience aware of how are we, actually, what are we going to talk about? Because I did debate on starting with, well, do I do a Carol Burnett humorous vibe of like, the camera's on, or people looking at me? And I thought that might creep people out. So it's meet people where they are, note your comfort level with humor, note the speaking context. So is it a death and dying workshop where it's saying how to see the funny in this, in grief or whatever, then that definitely would be an alignment. But if it's much more of a heavy topic, then it might not be the right tone or mood. And you also have to tune into your audience and ask yourself, the target audience, what is, when they walk in and sit down, especially video, because in person you can tune into that, but on video, think about what is your intention, what is your learning objectives, and how do you want it to land? And is humor appropriate for this given content, this given message? That's a great question. And reading the situation makes sense, right? So you can easily get, like Rennick talks about, you really have to tune into your own energy, and then also the vibe of the topic for which you're speaking, and that ultimate, how do you want it to land? What's the impact that you want to make? So are there any other questions before we wrap up today's time with Tina B being fully expressed? I'm so grateful for those of you who joined me today. And I want to ask, if you haven't already, choose to subscribe to Fully Expressed with Tina B. And I would love to have you join me next time at 11 a.m. Central, where we'll be highlighting some other insights of how to be fully expressed when it's kind of tricky, it's kind of hard, and your nervous system is saying, heck no. So this has been Tina B. And remember to be you and be true. It's all about, like Rennick says, the willingness to be vulnerable. Till next time.